Hey folks, welcome back to More Than a Refresh, the T3D sessions, and the Postgres Pet Peeves. Our guest today is Greg Dostatni, which it's terrible because that's not even actually his real last name. His real last name is some kind of Eastern Bloc European torture device that I have never been able to say. I tried, Greg. I mean, much love, but I can't say it. Well, you say it. What's your real last name?
So the last name is right, Dostatni. The first name is Grzegorz.
Okay, bless you. All right, so today we're talking about Postgres Pet Peeves. Greg, you are one of the people that we rely on most for the most deep, intrinsic, investigative, forensic, diagnostic. Oh my God, what just happened? Let's fix it. So, what's your Postgres Pet Peeve?
So I love Postgres, right? Let's start with that.
Yeah, we do. This isn't about, and we make our living off of it. We love Postgres, but nothing's perfect.
So I think one of my first pet peeves would be the default configuration.
What, you think that most people are running on 1 gigabyte of RAM right now?
Well, it's even worse than that because and like Postgres 18 has nearly 400 different parameters. So imagine you're somebody new just starting out. You install Postgres and you see something like the default shared buffers is 128 megabytes. And then you look at random page cost 4, which is designed for spinning hard drives, which almost nobody uses anymore. That still happens.
Just for archival.
So you look at those settings, you maybe research those settings, and you find that they're really based on something 20 years, created 20 years ago. That makes you wonder about all of the other 398 parameters or similar, and how they relate to your modern system. And that's an overwhelming amount of changes that you would need to review.
Well, it's not just review. I mean, this is why, for example, in January, Postgres World is running the PostgreSQL Conf A to Z training, right?
Right.
The problem, it's interesting because what you're talking about isn't even a technical problem. It's a community problem. It's a mindset problem. People through the decades have gone through and we've talked ad nauseum, argued ad nauseum. Look, this is terrible. I mean, the reality is the PostgreSQL.conf should have maybe 12 entries because 99% of people out there only need to change 12. You got your shared buffers, you got your work mem, you got your wall keep segments, you got your checkpoint timeout, you've got your random page / seek page cost, which that wouldn't even need to be included. Frankly, it should just be just set them equal or close to equal to each other and call it good. And then if you need to change it back because you're running some obscure configuration, because even the cheapest laptop anymore comes with, a small SSD.
Absolutely. And there's a ton of parameters for developers too, which I get, right? There's a ton of settings for developers, things like loading a shared library on your connection or delaying your authentication so that you can debug it properly.
Was a pretty print plan and things like that. I mean, you're right. There's a lot. But the problem with that, though, Greg, and if you don't, let me know if you don't agree. You actually touched on something that I've argued. I mean, I got to the point where I don't even watch the mailing list anymore because it's not worth it. For 30 years, I've been trying to argue usability to the community. And for 30 years, they're basically saying we only care about what we only care about unless our employer who is sponsoring us says that we need to care about something else. And since they're all engineers, that's what you get, right? And that's fine. I mean, it is. I mean, the counter argument is if you're concerned, this is a counter argument. You got a problem with it, Greg? Well, why isn't there a command prompt distribution that fixes it? Why don't we have our own RPMs and our own debs and our own tarball? Because it's not even a patch, really, right? We can just have a script that pulls our version of the config out of Git and then bundles everything up.
Well, there's a problem with fragmentation, right? In my review of settings, I found
wants PostgreSQL.org. RDS isn't PostgreSQL.org. There's no problem with fragmentation. It is fragmentation. People run what they want to run. I mean, think about it. If you think about all of our clients, and we're not going to name numbers or names here but if you think about all of our clients, how many of our clients are actually running PostgreSQL? RDS is not PostgreSQL. It's been patched. It's been forked. You cannot download it. Aurora, definitely not PostgreSQL. Microsoft's bastardization, not PostgreSQL. Google, right? They're not PostgreSQL. And I'm not knocking those companies. Good for them making money off of the open source. But seriously, how many out of all, and let me be very clear, listeners. We tell people run PostgreSQL. You don't have to run RDS. You can save money, run PostgreSQL on EC2 or on GCE or on Acolo or whatever you need. So this isn't us promoting cloud, and private instances. This is just literally, Greg, if you think about it, I know of one. Now, I know of two. I know of two that actually run PostgreSQL.
But I'm going to flip back to the other side for a minute. If you have 400 settings that you need to keep track of and understand what they do and how to change them, that's an enormous amount of work. So you might as well pay Amazon, right, to configure RDS and use that and expect that to be, decent.
Well,
maybe that's what we should be doing.
Well, there's certainly an argument for that. That's why RDS is so, popular. But I think it comes back to the flip side of what we're talking about. You don't need to know 400. You need to know a dozen. Add another dozen if you really want to have kick-ass logging. That's it.
But you need to know the right dozen.
Correct, which is why I said, why hasn't Greg put together a command prompt distribution of easy Postgres?
Well, we got a bit of a start of that last year at the conference with the perfect Postgres parameters presentation.
Okay. But that was like a year ago.
Well, there's something new planned for this Postgres.
No, I'm saying, let's be clear, folks. So Greg and we've been doing this a long time. And he's absolutely right. It is ridiculous that here's one kind of an inverted pet peeve. The fact that people are editing the PostgreSQL.conf file at all, right? You should be using alter system, right? But most people don't know alter system exists, right? Here's the conf file. I edit the conf file. I'm on Linux. This isn't fucking 1994, people. Right, there are tools and utilities for this, but I agree with you. The idea that there's 400, we've argued, especially now. So there is, you have the ability to include files in the PostgreSQL.conf file. So why isn't the PostgreSQL.conf, those 12-ish settings? Obviously, getting all of us to agree what 12 settings it should be that's a 5-year argument alone. But let's say we went through the 5 years and we get them to agree. And then what you have is include file. I don't remember the exact directive. It could be include directory. I know they have an include dir as well. And you've got developer settings.conf. You've got debugging settings.conf. You've got, I have 256 gig of RAM and, a NAS.conf or whatever, right? Why don't we do that? That seems like a really easy way to solve the problem without even having to argue with the hackers about the fact that the problem actually exists.
I remember when I started around 2007, 8.
Oh, you baby.
Something like that. There was a PG tune that would suggest settings based on your environment.
PG Auto Tune, I think is what it was called.
PG Auto Tune?
I think, yeah.
I wonder if that's still around.
So there's that opportunity, but that requires, um, right, you have an installation, it goes through and it does forensics on your environment, and that's all great. Don't get me wrong. I think that's a great opportunity. I mean, there is, DBTune now, which is, that service. Um, but we're not even talking about that, right? We're talking about lowering the barrier to confidence with the use of PostgreSQL. I mean, it's not uncommon someone comes to us and says Postgres is slow, and we change 2 parameters and Postgres is fast.
Yep. Although sometimes it takes a while to figure out which parameters need changing, and that it's
What?
its
But there's some
own
obvious
thing.
ones, right? Like
Yeah.
when we when we log in and we're like, you've got 256 gig of RAM and 128 mega shared buffers. Instant
Mhm.
problem, right? I mean, just without even looking at anything else, we can jump that up to say 64. If I say 64 gig, people will freak out, but the reality is you can do that. 64 gig, right? And then you run, what is it? PG stat buffer, PG buffer cache. That's what it is. You run PG buffer cache. It tells you what your hot heaps are and what size they are. And if you got 256 gig of RAM, there's a very good chance that you could put your top 5 or top 10 heaps into shared buffers without even affecting operational use for, your transactions. And then all of a sudden, it's going stupid fast. We charged you a very respectable $3,000 for it, but it took us an hour.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we have internally a lot of knowledge on like what is kind of best parameters or which ones we need to look at and how we need to diagnose these kinds of things or um, what's our kind of golden setup, which is fine, but it's not the end of the picture because there's also a lot of reasons why you may want to deviate from that, either for a good
Yeah.
reason or
Once
or
when
because
you know
of
the workload and things like
right.
that.
So there's
All
a
right,
lot of
folks.
knowledge related to that. But the
All right, folks.
default that comes with Postgres is dated.
Yes. We can agree on that, Greg. The defaults that come with Postgres, one, there are too many, at least from a visibility perspective, not that they exist. And two, they are way outdated. And folks, on this one, you probably saw this is why Greg is one of our senior people. He's very even keel. It's also why I no longer work with clients directly on Postgres because I just get too passionate. So, with that, folks, this has been another Postgres Pet Peeves.